I start getting into any other projects, which I kind of already have, I purchased, finally, I found an 85 Civic wagon all-wheel drive. Sadly, it's a push button start, but all that means I still have to source viscous coupler and still make the drive shaft work so it has some movement, because I'm just leaving the 4-link in the back. Yeah, so what I'm doing now is I have some downtime. I started cleaning off the mounts, cutting off the control arms because they were all bad. Gonna clean it all up, see. I know it's pretty rusty. I know there's at least 1 or 2 spots that has pinholes. Get that repaired. Once I clean it all up, then I'll take it apart, go over everything, make sure there's no like cracked axles or cracked splines on them, or the diff itself. You know, go over that. Try to make some type of rear disc conversion bracket. Shouldn't be too bad, but never know. So that's the plan, at least. So I'll show you guys what I got going on now for the 81 Civic wagon rear end to convert it to all-wheel drive. So like I said, all the control arms were basically rusted on. I got those off. So now it's pretty much all just cleaning it. I wish I had my power sandblaster going. Now to go at it. Those mounts there, obviously the old shock mounts, all that's gonna get shaved off and wire wheeled, all of it, just to kind of see where there might be holes, etc. So obviously this needs repaired, but only needs a plate on it for now. It shouldn't be too hard, like I mentioned previously. The plan is obviously to get this mounted, to get the control arms to fit, and then down the road, if I find a cleaner rear end, it could basically just be swapped over. So I'm even keeping the stock panhandler bar here, and I'll have mounts for everything. Get rid of the leaf springs. And like I said, once I find a rear end, then I can just swap it over without having to do any modifications other than cut those off the new one and then maybe weld on some coilover mounts. So yeah, should be pretty straightforward, but we'll see how that goes. Alright, so obviously I got the axles off both sides, and I got the actual differential out of it. Right away I noticed obviously there's some numbers sharpied in, some numbers over here as well, and then some numbers on that and on the actual pinion. Kind of see them right there. So that makes me think this rear end has been apart once before. Obviously that's where those numbers came from, because I doubt they're factory. Could be part numbers, could be lash set, I'm not really sure, but obviously there's not much lash. But this thing's looking super great condition. Like seriously, you would not think it's from 85 if you looked at it, but then again, it also doesn't get much power through it. So yeah, but obviously I just want to take it apart. I want to take this in to possibly get sandblasted, since I can't get much in here. Hopefully the sandblaster can get it. And in here I can't really see where that hole might be, but I'm not really sure if I can move it without dropping it. Sure, we'll try. There's like a pinhole somewhere in this area. I'm sure it's still there. Obviously it's not gonna just close itself, but I'm gonna, once it gets sandblasted, I'll be able to see if there's any holes on the backside here, pinholes. I'll be able to weld those shut, or just cut a patch and actually shut it together. But overall it's like in really solid shape. Like I said before, obviously this, but I'm not too worried about it. But my biggest thing is this looks super great condition. Obviously that's a big big yes on that. And you already know this is getting welded, so it won't be an open diff for long. I know I covered this in the blue all-wheel drive wagon. You don't really need to worry about much, but in a way you do. I know on the Toyota diff it's all one piece, so you guys can see that center part moves. So when you weld it, you want to have your axles in here, because if you don't, this might be like pushed down a little bit and it might not be centered in here. So you can see that top, so you want it to where it's centered. That's why you put the axle in, so you don't end up having to basically hammer in your axle, then it's a pain in the ass to remove. Then you could just leave it obviously out here, put your axles in just so they're straight in, tack them in place, and then you can remove your axles or leave them until you're done welding it. Just be careful you don't get any underneath, so you don't like tack your axle onto this. But yeah, no, I'll make some plates for here, probably a 1/4 inch steel. Then like I said, I'll be welding it, hopefully getting this sandblasted sometime soon. I won't make coilover mounts till it's on the car and I see what I actually need. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go up here, if it's gonna go off like the rear here where the old shock used to be, kind of at an angle, which that might be the way I do it since it's already a mount there. But then I'd have to get like 88 CRX or Type R style rear coilovers, so I might actually just convert it to where instead of going inside, I literally just cut this off and put the mount so it goes around it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's obviously it's all kind of old R&D, never been done on what I'm doing. So yeah, this is definitely getting welded. I just wanted to show you guys how clean it is in there, and like I said, that obviously it looks like it's been done before. So I'm gonna just count the gear ratio real quick. I'm pretty sure obviously it's a 2.3 or 2.55, whatever, but I'll go ahead and count those real quick and see where we're at. So like I said, I went ahead and counted the teeth on the ring gear and the pinion. There's 43 on the big side, 17 on the little side, so you divide the biggest number by the smaller number, and I got 2.529. I know wagon is, I believe, 2.55, so this is minimal off the newer style wagons, 88 up. And then CRVs end up being a 2.33, or I could have them mixed up, either or, can't really remember, but I mean I'm right in between. Obviously you can mix up wagon and CRV rear diffs or tranny wise, so it's not a big deal. At least I'm within the 2.5 at least. That's the same, and we're in business. I won't have to worry about having to run offset tire sizes and stuff like that, so that's awesome. Now like I said, I got to make that plate for the diff to weld, send that out to get sandblasted, and then eventually when I get some time, put it back together and have it ready for mock-up on the wagon. Another thing I didn't mention, obviously the axles there have backing plates for drum brakes. I'm gonna make a bracket to where I could run newer style rear disc brakes. So that's gonna be a challenge on its own, but it shouldn't be too bad. Might have to get longer bolts right here to fit the bracket. Not really sure yet, but like I said, it's nothing that should be super hard. And then I'll just have to get a 40/40 prop valve and I'll be set to go. So I'm taking some measurements here for the welded diff. Obviously, if you go right in between those gears, it's a little bit under 2. So I like to go right 2 1/8, 2 1/4. I mean, you could always grind it down a little bit, just so your you bevel the piece of metal and it'll sit right in there flat. Same for the sides. You go to like halfway on the gear. Obviously you don't have to be perfect, you're just kind of getting an eyeball. So 1 1/4 probably do it. When you bevel the sides out, and then I like to add that little bend. So basically it looks like 2 1/4 by 1 1/4 rectangle that I have to cut. Trying to look for some steel. Anything I have on hand, just scrap stuff. This is probably what I would use. This, probably a little over 1/8. I'm not really sure what size, but that would probably work great. But I don't have enough, so I'm gonna see what I can get out of this piece here. Obviously, it's not big enough because I would need 2 1/2. That's just too short, which might work because it just, if I cut right here, it'll go into there and as a groove. So that would get welded in anyways, and it's about 2 1/4. So this might actually work, honestly. So I go 1 1/4 there, and then what do you say, 2 1/2 we need? That's 2 1/2, so I end up cutting halfway here and a little bit on the edge here. But like I said, when you weld through that, that's gonna get welded in, so it doesn't really matter. So I'll try to cut it out of this one here and go from there, see if it works. If not, worst case, I just need to find obviously a little bigger piece or another side and go from there, but I should be able to make it work. Alright guys, so if you can see here, you kind of get the idea of the beveling the edges to match. Right now, seems like a little too wide for where I have it, and then the angle on the sides is too much, so I gotta grind it more, which works out perfect because it'll narrow it down. And I'll mainly do it on this side and then just narrow it down a little bit there. But you guys can see here, so that there doesn't matter because you're welding around it anyways. But the angle is definitely too much there. So I normally like them to sit a little lower, especially down here. It's not even in the teeth. If I put it flat, then it's too high either way on both sides. So I'm just gonna overall both sides make it smaller. So it probably end up being, instead of the 2 1/4, it's gonna be 2 inches up here and then 1 inch on the side, which I could have cut that to begin with, but I like to go a little bigger, then cut it down later rather than be too small to begin with. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. Then once it fits in there how I want it, then it should be ready to weld basically. But also you can see how I bent it to kind of follow that shape, that round shape or oval, whatever, half moon, quarter moon, whatever you want to call it. Probably still needs a little more, but once I cut it down to fit better, then I can do that and go from there. But for now, it should be fine. I'm just gonna, like I said, narrow it down all the way around and then go from there. Okay, so here's my piece there. I got it set up fairly well right there. You guys can see it's centered mainly on both sides there. Centered from here to there. Obviously we just want to run our welder really hot so it actually melts really well in between, because there's some gaps there, but obviously the weld should fill that up. And once you have both sides, then it should basically be soldered. But like I said, I'm not doing it right now. But when I do, I will put my axles in, just so I don't, you guys can see right here what I'm talking about. This can move up and down, and it'd be a pain in the ass to get your axle in and out. So if we do it with the axle in, it's more likely for it to slide right out, and you don't have to worry about that. So, but I'm gonna leave that for later. But like I said, for now, at least I already got those made. Gonna clean all the burrs up a little bit on the edges and then be ready to go. Alright guys, so like I said, got the axles on, so these things aren't off center, they're actually center now. So now, all we gotta do is push this axle in a little more. Okay, obviously we got our plate. Before I put my plates on, I like to put pretty much a full run on each corner. That way it's not just a plate, so these things will already be tacked in place. And then I put the plate weld around it. So, like I said, another thing you want to do before you actually start just welding, you want to get a torch and heat this up just enough to get it warm. Because if you weld, even though it's not cold out, obviously it's hot, if you just go ahead and weld this without preheating it, it might shock the metal and it makes it more prone to cracking later on. Versus if you heat it, then weld on it, it's already warm, so you're not completely shocking the metal right away, and obviously it'll last longer. So I'm gonna get my torch, start heating it up, then I'll do those tacks, and that'll stay warm enough for me having time to flip it, tack the other side, and then doing the plates and stuff. So like I said, I'll get my torch here. Honestly, I don't have my temp gun on me, but as long as you feel it warm by being like an inch and a half away, obviously that's warm enough to burn you, so likely it's warm enough for it to be hot enough to weld on. Give it a couple more passes here and then should be good to go. Pretty much technically at this point, it's already a welded diff. I mean, if you turn this axle, it's only going to turn both sides, but we're going to go flip it this way, and then we'll tack this side, and then we'll be ready for the plate. For the plates here, it don't matter which side goes where really, just because they're pretty close either way. I'll show you guys here a close-up of what it looks like inside of there. Obviously it's just the corners there. Same thing on the other side. So like I said, I'm gonna throw the plates in there now and go ahead and weld it. It'll basically be the final weld on the whole thing. there's that. Obviously here it's really bubbled up because I was trying to go back and go in between basically the gears. But that's not going anywhere. So, I mean, if it does, there's more problems than just my diff. So basically now, once again, flip it the other way. Hard to fall. Other plate. Just repeat. I'm gonna add a little bit of more angle on this one. I feel like it's not bent enough. Another one done. Yeah, like I said, right here. See, that's done. So now I'm just gonna go around. Like here, obviously, there's a little burr there. Clean, make sure there's no burrs that anything that I can clean off here. That way, it's not pretty much squishing in between the pinion and the ring gear. Overall, now I just pretty much let it cool down slowly and it'll be ready to go. That's pretty much how you roll the diff, really. I mean, obviously some people don't use a plate, but that's why their shit breaks right away, and then they blame it on the disc being the weak point, which the blue wagon over there's had a welded diff for shit probably 3 years now, no issues. And the Toyota, I went a full year beating the crap out of it on a welded diff just fine. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it's not like it makes crazy power for it to just completely shatter. I'd probably break an axle if it did before that, but either way, you know, it holds. So now I'm gonna put it back together, and like I said, still gotta build it for the 81, the 4-link and stuff. But I'm gonna go ahead and clean all this up, and then get ready to go back on the actual housing. Bye bye.